Hey, we got one viewer. That's awesome. One viewer is better than no viewer. It makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself. That's great. Let's give the guitar some tones, and let's do it sensibly. I don't just want to put one tone for both guitars. I want to put separate tones on the two guitars to get more stereo width, and the two will end up complementing each other and make the guitars actually sound much richer in the end. And of course, also right ahead, I want to make sure that I am working towards a kind of end goal. So what do I want this mix to sound like? When you listen through the song, there's definitely some new metal inspiration in there. I don't really want this to sound too modern and overproduced. I want to give it a bit more of a raw, old schoolish feel. And I'm gonna do all kinds of decisions throughout this mix, keeping that in mind. And the way I would go about it is, first I dial in a guitar tone on the bus, so for both guitars. And then I will dial in a second guitar tone on the same bus. And make sure that the two tones are somewhat in the same character, but also not too different. You don't want to have one guitar tone be too dark and rich in the lower range, and the other guitar tone be too bright and scratchy, because that will just sound out of balance. And now for another guitar tone, let's go with, for example, re-axis. Okay, and now we just shaft these two tones onto the two individual tracks like so, and see what we got. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do like so, low shelf. And this is going to sit in the mix really nice later on. Now let's go on with the drums. Drums is going to be the biggest work. What I like to do is first give everything console and tape emulation. It's gonna be very subtle on each individual track, but further down the line, in the end, it will give the song, the whole mix, just that much more life and mojo, as I sometimes like to call it. Yeah, I'm nerdy like that. So let's go to Drum Tape Desk. Now these drums, of course, were recorded already with mic pre's and the console. So we do not need the mic pre in here. But, of course, what this plugin now emulates is something being recorded through mic preamp into console onto tape and being played back from the tape back into the console. And then it's gonna be mixed. But since, of course, this was already recorded with mic pre's, I turned this off. But I keep the console. I'm gonna switch it to T88. This sounds much snappier and a little bit brighter. And of course, I want to have a very snappy, old school sound, so I'm gonna use this. But of course, these drums were not recorded onto tape, so I will use the tape emulation in here. And now I'm gonna have to dial this in for each individual track. And now come buses. Of course, buses are also part of the console, so we're gonna load tape desk in here as well, but of course turn off the tape, turn off mic preamp, and we just have console emulation now. And we're gonna copy this also onto this bus, and we're gonna copy this onto our main bus. Let's go here, rhythm guitars. Also need the tape desk. For guitars, I like to use 7.5 inch per second tape speed, because it rolls off the top end in a way that it doesn't sound too fizzy. I really like that. Kick drum. For kick drum, what I like to do, or in general for most things, is first I go with gem EQ, just for some very broad general moves. This thing just sounds so awesome. I also like that you're not distracted by the EQ curve or any kind of frequency analysis. You can just focus on the sound. Yeah, why not go a little bit ham here with these buttons? Snare drum, similar thing. With toms, let's work on the bus first. Now, bass. Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm just gonna be lazy and do my usual shtick. Duplicate it. On the bass low, I'm going to filter everything above 200 Hertz. And on bass this, I'm gonna filter everything below 200 Hertz. Now I can work on these two things independently. The low end, I just want to compress. Very hefty compression. Compress about 12 dB and then make up the gain again, 12 dB. TH3 over here, and load up. Oh, it sounds so disgusting. I love it. Okay, now we filter that low end again and take in the clean low end. Ah, awesome, awesome. Now let's go into compression. So kick drum. Again, I want to have something very snappy and more old schoolish and raw and rough sounding. So based on that goal, I now need to decide what compressor would best suit that. I already know 1176. Okay, right away I also want to give it the saturation knob. This thing is, it works on its way on all to my mixes. Something like this. Now for snare, same procedure. Here I want to work on the release a little bit more, because when the release is too fast, you notice that rattly stuff of the snare comes up quite a bit, and I want to get it a little bit more under control. I want to have a nice snap in there, but not too much rattling. You also notice when you have the attack super slow, there's a lot of woofiness coming through. And with the attack time, you can get that under control very nicely. Toms. So with toms, you know what I want to start with is actually limiter, because some hits poke out quite a bit. I want to get those under control before I hit the compressor. Okay, something like this. Now let's try 1176 again. Haven't tried this on toms yet, to be honest. Okay. Now what I also want to do on the toms is use a noise gate. Let's just get the stock noise gate in here. It will work splendidly well for this. Attack time very fast. Release time is a no wait. Release time needs to be really slow. Now hold is okay. Get a sidechain filter in there. Filter out all that low end from the sidechain. So the gate is only reacting to that pokiness from the attack, what you heard right now. And this way we can get a really good control on that booming sustain. I personally don't want to have that much sustain in there. I want it to be very tight and snappy, because otherwise it's just gonna muddy things up. Here you can see why you need a very slow release, because you don't want the gate to just chop off the toms. You still want it to have a little bit of a mellow fade out, like it's almost a natural sustain, but just very controlled. Excuse me. Okay, now here you saw it's all about figuring out just the right balance between how much do you boost certain frequencies on the EQ, how much do you compress it, how much saturation do you put on top of it all. Now what I need to do is shape the low end on bass and kick a little bit more. Let's get REQ here in on the kick. Let's put it before the saturator. What I did is I shifted that low end thump and energy a little bit lower. The way I did it is I just boosted that lower range around 50 Hertz, and then between 100 and 200 Hertz, you notice there's this little bit of poofiness to the kick. So you lower that a little bit, and instantly the kick sounds much richer actually. Now for bass, I don't really want to use the Q to boost that low end of the bass. The low end is good on around 100 Hertz. See, we already cut the rhythm guitars at 100 Hertz. The kick drum we boosted at 50 and sucked down 150. And now bass guitar can nicely sit at 100. So, but I don't want to use just EQ for this. I rather want to use max bass. Hang on, I still need these right here. Okay, sounds nice and growly. Love that bass. Now I want to make sure bass doesn't match the kick. Okay, that's good. Having these headphones on, I do notice rhythm guitars are a little bit out of balance on left and right. When you do something like this, here, important tip: take some plugin and swap left and right channel, because when you work on the mix for a time and you have very different tones for left and right guitar, your ears are gonna get used to this, and then you won't be able to really make out if things are still in balance. So if you swap the channels, you will instantly notice, oop, this one sounds harsher than this one, or this one sounds darker than that one. and you can immediately make adjustments. Add virtual mixtape onto my drum bus, my master bus. Because usually I send all my mixes through this, but as I said before, using or doing top-down mixing, I would constantly have to check what this is really doing. And I rather want to be further down the line in the mix before I go into this. Now, drum bus, I also want to use a little bit of compression. Dynamics, once again, use the 1176. And finally, on the drums, I'm gonna put G-clip. Just a quick, cheaty way to get the peaks finally completely under control and in check, so you don't get any problems further down the line and mastering and whatnot. Next thing is, on the kick drum, I want to shape that click in the top range a little bit more. So I'm gonna use another EQ band in here. Bam! Done. You see how cool this is? Just make broad moves with an EQ like this, and then some more detailed moves with a parametric EQ like this. Okay, cool. So there we have it. So far for today, that is what you can get in just 2 hours of mixing. And you see, I didn't do anything special. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Like, what am I supposed to talk about here? This is all so basic stuff. I didn't even use any kind of parallel processing. Just the snare reverb is in parallel, but otherwise everything is just super straightforward. No special tricks here. It's really just knowing your stuff, knowing the plugins in your library, and knowing how exactly to use them, and knowing how to dial in just the right balance between EQ, compression, saturation, and whatnot to get the sound that you want. That's all there's to it. So no special tricks will make your mixes magically better, but practice will, and experience.